welcome. We're going to go through a Everfit based nutrition masterclass today. So we'll be looking at all the different tools and features we have on Everfit in the realm of nutrition and how you can adapt those to different coaching styles or coaching levels, and then also different client styles as well. So a couple of things we're going to cover today. From a tooling standpoint is we'll look at the food journal, which is essentially the simplest and easiest way for a client to track their food on Everfit. We'll look at the macro report, so we'll go through viewing the report, and we'll look at integrating into or using third-party apps to integrate that data into the macro report. We'll talk about nutrition goals and how you can set a macro target, as well as different dietary preferences within Everfit. Then we'll take a look at some meal plans. So this is a bit of a newer feature. I know it's been out for a couple of months now, but we'll kind of take a little bit of a look and go through the difference between like meal plan and meal guidance. We'll look at the difference between a structured meal plan and a flexible meal plan that you can set up on Everfit. Then we'll also take a dive into recipe books as well. And then we'll look at a little bit of the automation aspect of things as well. So how you can have an intake questionnaire and a few other bits and pieces as well. What I will do is this pretty much the only slide that we have here. I'm going to start screen sharing in a minute and going through it that way. So there's going to be a lot of screen sharing in there. I'll keep one eye on the chat as we go through for any questions. But if I don't get to your question in the moment, we will circle back at the end and have a more formal Q&A as well. Okay. Cool. So yeah, with that, sorry, just reading a couple of these chats coming through. Just to give you a bit of an idea, so I'm not a registered dietitian or anything. So any of those like hard nutrition specific questions in regards to actual knowledge, if it's out of my scope of practice, I'll probably leave that. But that's definitely something that, I would say jump in next week, even though next week's webinar is about nutrition sales strategies. Dr. Mark, who is has a PhD in nutrition sciences, he's going to be someone that will definitely be able to answer a lot of those questions. So keep an eye out for that one next week, just in regards to that question, Leon. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm just going to share my screen. So just bear with me 1 second. All right, cool. Okay, so like I said, we're going to go through different features, and as I go through each feature, we'll kind of talk a little bit about, what a good use case for it is. So just to kind of cover off a few things before we get started, in case anyone's like more new to the Everfit platform, this is the main profile, the main page where you're going to have your list of clients. On the left-hand side here, as you see, this is where you'll find all of your basically your account-wide content, right? So again, if I'm going into the library here, even if I go down to meal plans or anything, this is going to be that's just everything that's in my account. Same thing if I come down here and I go to settings, whoops. Right, this is going to be the default settings for all of the different, where is it? There we go. The settings here will be for like all of your clients, right? So these are kind of your default settings. Whereas if you click on a client up here, I'll use myself and I go to settings, anything I adjust here in the settings under me is only going to affect that specific client. Okay, so that's also just something to keep in mind here, because we do have some nutrition settings that we'll look through throughout this webinar, but just wanted to give you that understanding that if you do go through and edit the settings on an individual client, it's not going to affect all the other clients, right? So if you want certain settings to be default level, you need to go through the left-hand side tab there. Okay, but first thing we're going to do here is go through the food journal. So like I mentioned at the top, this is pretty much the simplest, easiest way for a client to track food. So if we click on here, and essentially, I haven't updated anything in quite a while, but as you can see, there's just a few different things in there. Basically, what the client can do is they can either take a photo of their food, or they can just simply type out what's in it, right? So For this one, why I say it's the simplest and easiest is because from a client's perspective, all they're really doing is either snapping a photo or literally just typing in, this is what I ate for this particular meal, right? So if we compare that to something like a food diary, where they have to add every ingredient individually, all that sort of stuff, see their macros, their calories and things, not everybody's wanting to do that. So this is a really good sort of starting entry point for like a low level client that's maybe just stepping into the realm of being coached in nutrition. It's obviously not going to be as accurate as a food diary in terms of getting calorie content, macronutrient content, things like that. But as a coach, it is going to give you a bit of an idea about where they are with their nutrition, right? So you can kind of scroll through, have a bit of a look at it. You'll be able to see overarching trends, right? So looking at things like, okay, like what's the protein source in each of these meals, right? Like, are they only eating like maybe one meal and one snack a day, right? So you're going to be able to start to see a few of these little trends that you'll obviously then be able to provide some general nutrition advice to in how they can improve those sorts of things. So that's probably the simplest one. Again, depending on what your nutrition knowledge and qualifications or certifications are as a coach, there's also an interesting or an easy way to get involved where, again, you're not providing specific meal plans, you're not providing anything like that, but what you are doing is giving general advice and you're getting a bit of an overarching picture of what they're consuming on a day-to-day basis. Cool. So the next thing we're going to look at now is going into the macros tab. So I've filled in macros for yesterday and today for the sake of this, but if you haven't seen this before, you can link this to either a MyFitnessPal or Chronometer. So, if your clients have either of those, definitely set those up, get that integration, and then again, you're going to be able to see their food, their macros for the day. If you do have MyFitnessPal, you can generally click on that and see their actual full diary if they have those sharing permissions set, and you'll get a bit of more of a breakdown. But again, this is giving you a nice view. So as you can see here, you can switch to daily view, weekly view, weekly view being Monday through Sunday, whereas the last 7 days, obviously, if we did last 7 days from today, it's going to give me Wednesday through to Tuesday. And then obviously same thing for last 14 days. It's just a second week there. So what you can do also is come up here. You can select a specific date range as well if you wanted to. Then over here, what we can do is we can have a look. At the moment, I've got it set to all macros, but you can obviously choose between proteins, carbs, fats, and see them individually. It's also going to show you here, this line is the goal line. So again, like if I've got it set to all, this is going to be the line for my calorie target. Whereas if I switch to an individual macro, it's going to be the macro target. I don't have this set up, but you can also set up, and we'll go through this a little bit more later on, but you can also set up like a rest day macro as well. And if you do have that set up, it'll be a second line, dotted line, and instead of a star over here, it's going to have a little moon shape. At least I believe it's a moon shape. So that's just going to be there. So if you do have those rest day macros set up, you'll be able to see both there. Other things here, as you can see, we've got like an average for the week here, or completed days of the week. So it's going to give you a daily average compared to your goal. And then obviously if it's a different color here, then it's going to be over the goal. So again, just highlighting there. As you can see here, I'm a little bit low on my fats the last couple of days, but roughly similar in calories due to protein and carb intake. Again, you can come down here and you're going to see a more distribution by macros. And then again, you're going to get a day by day for the last for the week here, because I've got it set again for the week up here by this view. It's going to show me the weekly view as well. So it's going to give you a breakdown and again, show you if you're over, under, things like that. So you can either switch that to grams or percentage as well to give you a bit of an understanding of where you might want to be. Cool. So I'm just going to take a second, just going to quickly catch up on a few of these messages that are popping through. Okay, so we've got a few things here. So a question from Dan says that you can set daily macro goals for different types of days. So yeah, we don't have the ability, Dan, to potentially set like a leg day versus an upper body day type macros. But like I said, we do have the ability to have a regular day and a rest day. So you've got the option to set two different macro goals there. Yeah, so Leon, good to know we got two Leons in the chat here, but Leon said, are you able to speak to the rest day, off day macros function? So we'll go into setting a macro goal in a second, and we'll be able to show you that there. And yes, you can, Marissa. So Marissa asked, can you set a target inside Everfit, or does it need to be set from inside MyFitnessPal? You can set them from either. Um, if you set it in Everfit, this is what you'll see. If you set it in MyFitnessPal, so I actually went in MyFitnessPal. I actually have a different goal in MyFitnessPal. So my MyFitnessPal goal was like 2,600 calories, and my Everfit goal is 2,490. So it can have a discrepancy there. So it's not like if you set it in Everfit, it'll override MyFitnessPal and vice versa. Okay, so sorry, I'm just having a look here. So there's a couple of different ways to set some goals here as well. So I think this might help. There's a couple of questions in here, but basically what you can do is come over here for calories goal and edit. It's going to bring up this screen here. So you'll be able to set your either by grams, or if you want to be, set by percentages instead, then you can do that. Obviously, if you set by percentage, you're going to need to set a calorie goal first, and then the percentages will be based off that. Whereas if you set it by grams, you input the grams, and then the calories are calculated from the macros, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like a one way, like chicken or the egg kind of thing. Like if you want to set the specific macrograms and then generate a calorie goal from that, you'll use by gram. If you want to set a calorie goal and then have the macros based on that, you'll use percentage. And then for the rest day macros here, again, you can add rest day macros. And again, you can either choose it to be days without a workout assigned, or you can make it specific days of the week. So it gives you that option as the coach. And again, you simply just put in what you want the rest day calories to be, and then set that by percentage. Again, because I'm on by percentage, if I switch it over to grams, then it obviously works the other way. So hopefully that answers a few of the questions that have popped through in the chat. Okay, so just quickly catching up on a few other questions here. Erica, yeah. So Erica said when you choose the last 7 days, it does include the current day, which is true, and I do understand that. Probably what you would likely do for that is, I don't know if actually if you do last 7 days. Yeah, so there you go. So it does include that. So that is a little bit of a tricky one, Erica, and definitely something that I can let the team know about, and potentially have, the last 7 days, including today or not including today. I think that could be something that we could look into. Ashley, Ashley asked, can you track foods directly in Everfit? We don't have a food diary built into our system yet. It is something that we're exploring, but at the moment, to get like a true food diary, you would need to use a third-party app. However, if you do have recipe books and meal plans and things, and people do that, which we'll get to a little bit later, that will add to the macro. So if you assign recipes to a client and they track them, it will basically create like a mini food diary, but it's not in the true sense of like a MyFitnessPal type food diary. So hopefully that answers that one. We're always looking, I know there's a couple of different questions here around different third-party apps and what we can integrate. We are always on the lookout for different apps, and to see if we can integrate with them. So I know someone's had like My Net Diary, someone asked for Log Eat, a few other ones as well. That is something that we're always on the lookout for. So again, yeah, if it's something that's overly popular and we get a lot of usage or a lot of requests for it through Canny and things like that, then we'll look to add some of those on when we have the time and the resources. Okay. So just sorry, I've just got a couple of other relevant questions here. Marissa asks, is there a difference in integration feature access with MyFitnessPal versus Chronometer? That's a good question. I've actually never used Chronometer myself. I used MyFitnessPal just simply because it was the one I already had. And I believe the only real difference is for MyFitnessPal, you can access the client's diary if they share it. So for instance, if I click on this, you can go through and actually see my diary of what I've consumed for different days. I'm not 100% sure if that is the case for Chronometer, because like I said, I've never used Chronometer before. But I believe if anyone in the chat has used it before and you've got some knowledge in there, feel free to drop it in there. All right, cool. So that's pretty much the macro report here, and how you set a goal through that one. The next thing that we're going to look at is going to be the meal plans. So if you come over to the meal plan tab here for a client, there's a couple of different things. Firstly, you'll see you have flexible meal plan tab here, recipe books, dietary preferences here. So I've got it set to a flexible meal plan, but you can choose per client to either have a flexible meal plan or a structured meal plan. So essentially, you can click settings up here in the top right corner. It brings this up. So a structured meal plan is essentially going to, as the title suggests, have another level of structure to it, right? So it's more of a traditional meal plan where you think like, this is your recipe or your meal for breakfast, this is lunch, this is dinner, and this is a snack for Monday, then so forth on Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. Whereas a flexible meal plan is going to give you you can set the number anywhere up to 7 recipes for breakfast, 7 recipes for lunch, and 7 recipes for dinner or snack. And then the client can then go and basically pick and choose from those sets of recipes and build their own plans. So it's a little bit more like I guess like a recipe pack where you can kind of pick and choose and build your own plans on the client's end. But what you can essentially do is you can create, specific plans to that individual based off their macros and things like that. And then recipe books again is sort of, it's more of a less structured version of the flexible plan again. So if you think about recipe books being like, you sent clients PDFs of recipes in the past, this is basically that, but it's built into the Everfit system. So instead of having, to pull up a PDF and then maybe add that into a MyFitnessPal or something, they can literally just be like, yeah, cool. Like I want this recipe, and then I've eaten this recipe for Tuesday's breakfast, and then it'll log that in their Everfit account. So it'll actually sorry, just stumbled on my words. It'll log it into the system and then adjust the macros and things like that as well. The other thing to note as well, if you're having both a meal plan and a client has an integration with a MyFitnessPal or a Chronometer, say they log their breakfast in MyFitnessPal, but then they use the recipes you provided, whether it be through a meal plan or a recipe book for lunch and dinner. So they've got breakfast in one, lunch and dinner in Everfit. That'll actually sync up in that macro report. So you'll be able to see the combined macros from both platforms. Okay, so with this, just to have a little bit of a look, I don't have a meal plan assigned as of yet, but what you want to do with the meal plan is come over first to dietary preferences. So again, this is another place where you can set a client's macro goals or calorie goals. Here, you'll also be able to select which meal categories you want as well. So if you want to, again, like I said before, maybe the client's like, hey, like I always eat the same breakfast. I don't need a breakfast option. Like, great. So you unselect that and you just want to give them lunch, dinner, and snack options instead. You can also set it for varying dietary preferences, such as dairy-free, gluten-free. You can see the list here. But obviously, if they do have any preferences there or restrictions, you can go ahead and select those as well. And then once you're done, you simply just save that, and it'll be in there. So again, with the flexible meal plans, I don't have one assigned, but if I were to go through, actually, I'll go to the library and go to meal plan templates. Again, here are some different meal plan options as well, right? So this one is a flexible, this one's a structured meal plan. So as you can see, it's got Monday, day one. It's got one recipe for breakfast, or one meal, I should say, for breakfast, lunch, dinner, right? So it changes from day to day. I created this one, so I kept, like a batched meal prep style recipe for breakfast there. So that's why you'll see it repeating. But as you can see, it's kind of different from day to day. I mean, things that I've tried to do here when I create a meal plan is sort of look at like, okay, what do they have for dinner? And then sort of use that as lunch on the following day, so they can kind of meal prep a little bit in a sense. Or if they make a double serving and have leftovers, it just kind of reduces the workload of having to create meals. So again, this is just an example, but as you can see, generally dinner flows into the following day's lunch. All right. Then everyone should also have these 3 meal plans assigned as well, because they're basically default ones that everybody gets in their plan. But then the other thing with this is, I'm trying to think if this is your recipe library as well. So that was the other thing I wanted to talk about. So Everfit's got about 600 recipes in their library at the moment, something that we're constantly looking to build upon. But you can also add your own recipes here as well, and particularly with the AI recipe builder, super easy over here. You can either copy and paste the details, you can upload a PDF, or you can paste in a URL and then hit generate, and it basically fills out the recipe for you, and then it allows you to potentially make any small edits, changes, things like that. So have a quick review. But basically it takes the process of adding recipes into the platform from sort of like 5 to 10 minutes per recipe into maybe like 1 minute per recipe. So it's a bit of a time saver in that sense. Okay, just going to take a quick second here just to look at some of the chat here, because I see it's been going off. It seems like people are kind of chatting amongst themselves, which is always great as well. So just having a quick look. Debbie asked, is there a way to request new features? Yes, I would use Canny for that. So we have a Canny board where you can drop a feature or look at other people's feature requests. You can upvote them, things like that. And we check that somewhat often in regards to helping us prioritize which features we focus on. Obviously, we can't build every feature at once, but we do use that input there. Okay. So Ashley said, can you build flexible meal plans and save it and have it for the majority of clients and make any tweaks? So you could do that, but what you would likely do if you're going to create a meal plan and have it for like multiple clients, I would suggest creating a recipe book instead. So a recipe book is essentially a flexible meal plan, but instead of being specific to one client, it's probably more generalized and it's easier to share that way. So you can share it as like an on-demand resource for people. So that would probably be my suggestion in how you would set that up. One other thing that I forgot to mention, and I'm just going to quickly go back and show you, is again, if we go to client settings, now this is another thing with the ability for a coach and what your level of skill or knowledge is. Obviously, like the term meal plan can be quite restrictive, and not everybody's allowed to assign specific meal plans. So what you can do is actually come through here and choose whether it'll be displayed on the client side as either a meal plan or meal guidance. So again, if I'm giving a flexible meal plan, even though we've kind of called it flexible meal plan, it's technically not, because it's kind of like, here are just some recipes. kind of pick and choose from these if you want and build your own plan out of it. So in that case, I might choose meal guidance as the terminology that I want the client to see on their end. Whereas if I was a registered dietitian and I'm prescribing a specific meal plan, I would obviously keep it as meal plan rather than meal guidance. That was just one thing that I wanted to show. The other thing you can do in the settings as well is you can allow clients to replace recipes. So you can either have them replace a recipe from all of the recipes in the system or only your own custom recipes as well. So if you don't want to use our recipes and you just wanted to use your own, that's totally fine. I will add that all of the recipes that go into our Everfit system have been reviewed by a dietitian, a registered dietitian that we use as well, to kind of give you that peace of mind if that's not a particularly strong area that you have. The other thing that I'll kind of go through as well is just with some of the other things. So we looked at the food journal before, we looked at macro tracking as well, and then the meal plans. These are all things you can turn off or on, right? So again, if you have a beginner client and you just wanted to use the food journal and you didn't want to overwhelm them with macros or meal plans, you could simply turn these off. Or again, maybe you didn't want to use the food journal and you simply wanted to work on meal plans, but you didn't want them to track their macros. You can kind of go through and pick and choose what features they get access to as well, which can also be really helpful when you're selling different products and different services at different levels. So maybe you have just personal training where it doesn't include a nutrition aspect, right? So you turn all the nutrition features off. And then if you do have another package, which is fitness and nutrition, obviously you can turn some of those features on. And it just helps that, if you aren't doing nutrition coaching, you don't want a client to go into the app and be like, well, like, how come I'm not getting nutrition coaching when there's a nutrition tab here? And it kind of just gives them like that sense that they're missing out on something. Whereas if you turn those features off and they're not visible to the client, they don't even know what they're missing in a sense. So again, just providing you a little bit more flexibility with the way you set up your products and your packages. All right. Sorry, I know we're sort of jumping around a little bit, but I'm trying to keep track of the chat as well. So just going to quickly jump through. Daisy asks, can the client adjust the quantity of the ingredients inside the recipes? At the moment, they can't. That is something that we're looking at building out in the future. Being able to provide more flexibility to the client. One of the things we're also looking to do as well is have a serving multiplier as well. So you could either go down to a half serving or you could go, 1.5, 2, whatever it might be. So that just gives a bit more flexibility within the recipes as well. If you have a 1,600 calorie target versus a 2,500 calorie target, they could essentially use the same recipes, but just adjust the serving sizes to meet their caloric needs. Okay, so I'm just having a look at some of the questions here. When it syncs up the macros between both platforms, can the client see it also? The client will be able to see the total macros in the Everfit app. So if they're using Everfit and MyFitnessPal, for instance, or MyFitnessPal and Chronometer, which I doubt they would use both of those, but if you're using a third-party platform and Everfit, like I mentioned before, in that case where maybe breakfast is done in MyFitnessPal, lunch and dinner are done with meal plans in Everfit, if they go into the Everfit app, they'll be able to see the total there. But if they went into MyFitnessPal, they're only going to see the MyFitnessPal content. So that's a one-way traffic. Ashley said, where do you find the dietary preferences? Hopefully I answered that before, but just in case, so going back to where they are, you go to the meal plan tab of the client, and then you come over and under that, there'll be the 3 different options there. So you click on dietary preferences and you'll be able to see it that way. Josh, yes, you can definitely create your own recipes. Like I said, you can either create them, I showed you how to do it with the recipe builder, but I can also quickly show you how to do it manually as well. So if I wanted to create a recipe, recipe builder there, create new recipe right next to it, and then you can go through, you put the name in. So let's just call it chicken for now, just to quickly show you, and then it pulls it up, and then you can put all the input in. So you've got prep time, cook time, servings, main dish, side dish, which meal category, dietary preferences, and then down here you have ingredient, instructions and nutrition information. So you can add ingredient from our ingredient database, or if it's not in the database, you can also just add it as plain text as well. For the instructions, again, you can add a video link here if you have that, or if it's not, you can just add the instructions in text. And again, you can have both preparation instructions and cooking instructions. So you can separate those out. And then finally, nutrition information as well. So you can have it be auto-calculated, which if you go into ingredients and you use our ingredients, so I'll just pick a few ingredients here. This probably isn't going to make a lot of sense, so I wouldn't go and copy this recipe if I was anybody, but just to kind of show you what it looks like. So we've got all different sorts of recipes here. You would add those in, and then obviously you can put that. You've got different sorts of units, so you can either do an imperial unit, so you got teaspoon, tablespoon, all those sorts of things. You'll have metric units, and then you can have other units as well. So these are a little bit more unique. And then so when you add them in that way, you can come over to nutrition info. It's going to auto calculate the macros based on the ingredients, or if you would prefer, or if you enter the ingredients as, so if I get rid of these, if you enter the ingredients just as text, you can come over to nutrition info and you can manually input your own nutrition calculations as well, if that's something you want to do. So again, just providing you with that flexibility of doing it in different ways and giving you that freedom. All right, I'm not going to save this recipe because, like I said, it didn't sound overly appealing. Hopefully that answers your question there, Josh. Okay. Alyssa, yes, so the meal planning tools are an add-on. So you do get basic functionality with the starter plan. However, the starter plan and in the pro plan, but if you do want specific meal plans, then I would definitely recommend using that add-on. So Kim asks, when you're using the AI recipe importer and you use it to add a PDF, do you need to have the ingredient added to the library with the included macros? So what the AI does is looks to map the closest ingredient we have in our library with that, and it'll actually provide a suggestion. And if the suggestion isn't a direct match, it'll flag that to you and say, like, this is what we found, and we think this is the most accurate one. You can then go in and either accept that or you can change it. But we do have most ingredients in the database, so that shouldn't be an issue in the sense of you're not finding it, the specific ingredient. But if there are any specific ingredients that don't exist, you can also add your own ingredient to that. You will have to put your own nutritional information for that ingredient into the system, though. We're also continually going through and looking at a lot of the custom ingredients that are added to add to our library as well. So we want to make sure that, if there are any things that we're missing, particularly at the moment, we tend to have a lot more generic ingredients rather than branded ingredients. So, if you did want to add a specific brand of something with the specific nutrient content, you could do that. So Ashley asks, going back to the settings, is there a way to make all settings a certain way, or do you have to go into every client? Yes, so you can definitely adjust settings on a global default level, and you can do that in two ways. So you can come through, again, if you go through here and go into settings. Oops, that's not the right one. Oh, they're running away from me. Hang on. It's been a while since I've had to do this. Default settings. So defaults, go to your settings, your account, and then default settings. And here you are. And it's the exact same settings system that you'll see in an individual client. but this will obviously be any new client that comes in will get this default set of settings. The other thing you can do with settings as well, so again, say you've got different products or packages that you're selling, you can actually change the settings for an individual onboarding flow as well. So if you come into automation and you have this add-on, you go to the onboarding flow. When you're creating an onboarding flow, you'll be able to edit it. Whoops. And actually, sorry, and when you create, I was going to get to this later, but you can create an auto flow, and within an auto flow, sorry, you can do settings. Okay, save the change. Jumping around a little bit. So if I wanted to create a new auto flow, or I'll actually just show you one that I already have. So when you create an auto flow, you can obviously see all the different things you can assign: leaderboards, workouts, tasks, messages, who the clients are. You go into the settings here. So again, you create a specific auto flow with a specific set of settings. So again, like I was saying before, if you've got just a fitness product and then a fitness and nutrition product, for the fitness and nutrition product, you would create a specific auto flow for this with the specific settings you want for that package, and then you would add that auto flow into an onboarding flow. Right, so taking back here, and again, you can add that auto flow in there. So anyone that goes into that onboarding flow and into that auto flow would get the different set of settings, if that makes sense. All right, just reading through a few more. So Judy asked, for the add-on for the meal plans, it's $39 a month, which is correct. That is not per client, that's per account. So even if you have an account and you have 3 or 4 coaches that use that account, it's still $39 per account. And it does give you access for all the clients. Ashley said, if you build your own recipes, will they be located somewhere specific just to see your own recipes? Yes, so if you go to the recipes, sorry, I'm having a bad day on the cursor today. Again, like I mentioned here, this is where you can add your own ingredients too, by the way. I didn't okay this before, but in this same thing, you have recipes and you can have ingredients. And again, you can add your own. But with recipes, so yes, you can see the recipes here. You can also see all recipes and then your own published recipes as well. So again, these are some old ones that I had in here, so disregard the names and things. But yeah, that's the way you can filter through. You can also go up here and filter various ways by calories, dietary information, things like that. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. And then when you are creating a meal plan as well, you can also click a button that highlights only your recipes so that you can just use them if you don't want to use ours. Another question says, can you set up 2 auto flows? Yeah, you can set up as many auto flows as you want. So you can, if you have 10 different packages with 10 different settings that you want, you can create 10 different auto flows for that. Yeah, Carrie, quick question. How do you delete a client? So you can delete the demo clients the same way you delete any client. You would select them, go to actions. You would then archive that client, and then you would go to a list of archive clients. And then you can, again, I don't have any here, but actually, what I'll do, I'll just archive this. So you can archive it. So one thing too, once you archive it, it'll let the client know, but you can archive them. Then you come down into the archived bit, again, highlight their name, actions, and then you can either reactivate or delete them permanently. So same way you do it with any client, the demo clients work the same way. All right, cool. I'm just having a little bit of a look here. The only other thing that I was going to go through with the onboarding flow as well that I wanted to share is this is a bit of a newer feature. But when you create an onboarding flow, you can now assign recipe books directly into an onboarding flow as well. So that's something that is a newer release that was highly requested after we released recipe books. So you can now go ahead and add some recipe books in there. So the minute the client signs up and goes into the app for the first time, they'll see those recipe books in there, just like they would with any other things you assign in regards to programs, resources, things like that.